All right. Welcome everybody. Today we have a awesome webinar. I've been looking forward to this. Pretty excited about it to share some really cool self-care techniques and talk about the depths of self-care for advocates. Okay. All right. Let's do a little housekeeping. Okay, so of course, we'd like to thank the Office of Violence Against Women for funding the work we do and this super sweet webinar. Okay, so definitely love when y'all participate and y'all talk to me and interact. So this is your control panel. If it does not look like this, go ahead and click that orange little arrow at the top, and that will either expand it or retract it. And we will use the raise hand button throughout the webinar. I'll ask questions, and then y'all can click that button, and I can kind of get a count of how many folks may have experienced this or want to know about a certain bit of information, something like that. Also, here at the bottom, this is what we're going to use the most. This is the question box. So the question box allows for you to send a message or question to me. So I'm the only one that reads it. I'm the only person on this webinar today. So just me and my lonesome. So I will make sure and do my best to watch those questions as they come in. So I would love for all of you to test out this little question box little feature. So if you could type in there, where are you from? What do you do? Are you a system advocate? Are you community-based? Are you law enforcement? I know we get a lot of LCSWs here. Are you a mental health professional? Looks like we have some folks from DCFS. Nice, yay, we got a couple volunteers on here. Ooh, some systems advocates. Ooh, medical social worker. Nice. Ooh, folks from Alabama. And of course, if you're here from somewhere else other than Utah, let me know. I will shout that out. And one of my cats is currently throwing a fit, so you'll probably hear some of his loud meowing. I apologize for that. All right, we have some therapists from our local domestic violence service providers. Ooh, some folks from Idaho. What up, Idaho? North of us. Yeah, it looks like we have a lot of therapists here today, a lot of LCSWs and mental health professionals. So that I think is going to be awesome. So we're going to give you a lot of tools today, a bunch of activities that you can do with yourself, your friends, your family, and with clients and victims and survivors. So that's excellent. Great. Thank you everyone for chiming in. And we do have a bunch more folks that are popping in, and so we'll see these folks pop in as well. All right. So there are a bunch of handouts for this webinar. Unfortunately, the handout panel is not working for me today. It's being a little silly goose. So I will send those via email after the webinar. So stay tuned for that. Okay. So yes, I think probably, truthfully, one of the biggest reasons why people love me is because I give out free CEUs. So yes, I do have CEUs available for this. So yeah, you will get an email tomorrow. Okay, so you'll get an email tomorrow around noon Mountain Time, and it will have a link for the quiz. My cat is being really loud right now. I apologize if you can hear that. It will have a link for the quiz, And additionally, we'll have a recording of the webinar. And we will have that available on YouTube in the next day or so. So definitely check that out. So wait for that email for tomorrow. You'll get a link for the quiz. And I will warn you that this quiz is not like the other quizzes. So it does have some like concept mastery, questions on it, but also, asking questions about what you're doing for self-care and trying some of these activities that we're going to talk about today. So be prepared for that. I do expect y'all to practice a little self-care. Okay, report back to me. So, all right. So practicing self-care. This is probably something that we hear a lot, right? Self-care, can be a buzzword. We've seen it everywhere. People doing things, practicing self-care, talking about self-care, the importance of it. But what does that really mean? Okay, what does it mean, especially for advocates? What does it entail, right? So, yeah, let's get into this, okay? We already talked about our funding. Looks like I was extra excited this week to talk about that. Okay, so for folks that do not know who the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition is, that is where I work. So we are the federally recognized state domestic violence coalition for good old Utah, right? So basically, we are a nonprofit. We are a support organization. We support folks who are doing direct services. So we do that through education, training, site visit program overviews. Technical assistance is probably the main thing that we do, right? Especially right now, I'm doing a lot of technical assistance. And remember when we talk about technical assistance on a coalition level, we're not talking about you calling me up and being like, heck, I can't get Real Player to work, right? Little callback to those of you who remember Real Player in the 90s. I could probably help you get it to work on your computer, but technical assistance generally means that you call me, you reach out to me and say, heck, I am struggling to find resources for the survivor. I'm unsure on how to work with the survivor. Or do you have any, best practices? What are the most recent national, best practices, right? So a big part of my job is translating all those findings and national best practices, all these big things, translating those into my cats, I apologize. I don't know why right now is the time they're practicing their own self-care right now. Oh, heck. Yeah, so translating those into bite-sizable chunks for y'all, right? And so I read the 300, 400-page guides and I break them down so y'all can implement it. Y'all can actually do that, right? Okay. So, favorite little slide here. Okay, so if y'all don't know me already, right? If you haven't seen me in person or haven't found out a lot about me on the internet already, my name is Andy Tremonti. I use they, them, their pronouns. I'm the education and outreach coordinator for the coalition. So I do the majority of the education and training for the coalition, and the outreach part is I specialize in Two-Spirit and LGBTQIA survivors, right? And so that's where the bulk of my experience comes from. In college, in undergrad, I did study psychology and women and gender studies. And a lot of my work experience, majority of it has been working specifically with that population, right? And not just survivors of domestic and sexual violence, but survivors of all sorts of trauma, okay? Yeah, and I'm a Sasquatch enthusiast. Actually, I did get a really sweet gift in my office the other day, a Utah themed Sasquatch sticker, and it is very awesome. So I do love that. All right, so this is kind of what I'm working on this week. I was able to play Dungeons and Dragons for the first time in a long time. If any of you are playing Curse of Strahd, I'm gonna have you probably turn away for the next couple minutes, the next couple seconds here. But yeah, it was really nice to be able to play. We did it, through online video chatting, and it was really, really great. It was really fun. So my sweet Toriko, he is currently jumping on the furniture, running around. He's a big boy, so he's making a lot of mess. And Jorge is the one that's basically yelling right now. So if you can hear that sweet cat yelling, that is Jorge. And this is what I'm working on. So Sam, the person who was on our webinar last week, is actually in this Dungeons and Dragons group, this campaign. So I couldn't show y'all what I was actually working on because I couldn't give you the secrets. Okay. So this is a church that I'm working on. It's 2 stories, and it's about 60% done. So hopefully I can get that done in the next couple of weeks, right? Okay. All right. So these are our objectives today. So we're going to talk about the importance of self-care. Okay. We're going to talk about compassion fatigue, burnout, secondary trauma, and vicarious trauma, right? All right. So importance of self-care. So I do, want to preface this with, you are important and you do deserve care. Okay. All of us are important. All of us deserve care, right? And I think there's, a lot of barriers, especially with advocates and folks who are very giving, and folks who are, like oftentimes caretakers, right? Is that we kind of derive our importance or our worth from how we care for others or how others may see us, right? And so hopefully, we can have a little bit of a shift of knowing that we are important regardless of how many people we serve, regardless of what we, do, right? Okay, so, when we work with vulnerable populations, right, especially victims of crime, victims of sexual and domestic violence, victims of human trafficking, this can be really taxing on us, right? Because we are putting so much of ourselves into the work that we do, right? So when we do give too much of ourselves, think about some of the things that we may experience, some of the feelings that we may have, right? So of course, that excessive stress, right? Maybe even having stress that we can't explain or that we don't understand is, it's not even grant reporting season, and I just feel so overwhelmed. I am having a hard time just answering my email, right? We may feel tired. We may feel, fatigued, right? Running on empty. Maybe we're making a lot of trips to Maverick to get coffee. I know. There's one of my deepest, darkest secrets, y'all, is I love me some Maverick coffee, right? Oh, it gets in your veins and it does the job, right? Maybe you're maxing out those punch cards a little too quick, right? Just trying to get that extra energy. Okay? Think about, if we're not taking care of ourselves, how can we take care of others, right? And, it makes us more susceptible to things like the, 3 types of, the 3 things that were here at the bottom, vicarious trauma, secondary traumatic stress, and compassion fatigue. And compassion fatigue, talking to, some of y'all, meeting with you, working with you at trainings and stuff, compassion fatigue is something that oftentimes comes hand in hand with shame, is that we feel shame for experiencing compassion fatigue, right? When this is a huge warning sign, this is telling us, hey, you got to heckin' slow down because we can't take this anymore, right? This is too dang much, right? All right, so let's get to the next one here. So adverse childhood experiences. How many of you have heard of that? Can you do the raise your hand or type yes into the box? Oh yeah. So it looks like most of us have definitely, yeah. Well, actually, probably about half of us. It looks like half of us have heard of that, of adverse childhood experiences. So ACEs. It's really important, especially as folks who, work in systems of care, right, is this can be a really great tool in understanding and kind of knowing why we may be having a hard time practicing self-care or having some of these, health issues, right? Or have a harder time with, certain types of stress, right? So NPR does a wonderful quiz. They have, the quiz that you take, the 10-question quiz, and then they give you, information on the types of ACEs, kind of what that means, what does it look like, right? So we have three, basic types of, adverse childhood experiences, abuse, neglect, household dysfunction, right? So adverse childhood experiences are these, painful, hurtful, emotional experiences that translate into organic disease later in life, right? So, here's some of the health risks that, may come with higher ACE scores. So it's really interesting to kind of know that and kind of understand that, right? So I do have a pretty high ACE score, right? And it's interesting to kind of understand, like, oh, I have a high ACE score, and oh, look at maybe some of the things, like I have been overweight for most of my life, right? And so what are some of those barriers for me to lose weight, right? And even kind of connecting the feelings of safety and being maybe bigger, or finding, what is it? Even feelings of safety or comfort in food, right? And so, oh, I can kind of identify that, and how can I make lasting change, right? Right. So this is one of the most requested technical assistance questions that I get, is boundaries. How do we as advocates set boundaries, right? So I definitely love me some boundaries, right? Love me some healthy boundaries. That's important for me, is to have relationships that are mutually beneficial, that have healthy boundaries, and a lot of, communication, right? So the next bunch of slides, we are going to talk about how we set those dang boundaries, right? Okay, so we know that boundary setting is a great way for you to help not only manage your time, but also be able to, control the amount of energy that you're giving to certain situations or people, right? So setting boundaries, oftentimes you hear the word healthy, right? And healthy can mean a lot of different things, right? So setting boundaries is a very positive, experience in many ways. It is an adaptive coping strategy, right? It is a way that helps us cope and monitor and maintain ourselves, right? So here is the 6 kind of steps that we are going to kind of go through and talk about in setting boundaries, right? So first and foremost, respect your time and your feelings, right? Your time, your feelings, okay? They matter and they're important. And they literally are going to be part of everything that you do on a daily basis, right? So if we're not taking care of ourselves, some of our feelings, we might start to project. We might start to feel resentment towards other folks, right? We might even take it out on folks or be little passive aggressive gooses, right? Communicate early, often, and clearly, right? And this is important. And some of us may feel nervous to talk about something that we've already brought up, but hey, it's okay to have reminders, right? Think about, how many of us at work are like, oh, dang, I really wish so-and-so would have sent me an email reminder because I kind of forgot about it, right? Let's remind each other. Let's say, hey, I like this, aspect of our relationship. Let's keep doing that. And, this part, I'm not really feeling it, right? And of course, honor your own boundaries and experience, okay? You matter, you're important. Uphold boundaries consistently, right? So what is the one thing that, the advice that parents have or people give to parents, right, is be consistent. Whatever it is, be consistent, right? So set and be consistent with expectations, right? So not only communicating what we expect from others, but also what others should expect from us, okay? And then lastly, addressing feelings of guilt. Okay, like heck, how many of us feel guilty when we have to take a day off? How many of us feel guilty when we just can't answer another email, right? So what can we do to get to a place where we maybe don't feel guilty, right? Or we can handle or address those feelings of guilt, okay? So yeah, I have a whole bunch of these little sayings in here. I know y'all love them, so included them. So this one says, healthy boundaries are not walls. They are gates and fences that allow you to enjoy the beauty of your own garden, okay? So respect your time and your feelings. So you matter. I'm going to say that probably 700 more times in the next hour, okay? You def matter, okay? Literally give yourself permission to set boundaries. It's really, really interesting how like powerful it can be to give ourselves permission to feel, to do things, to experience things, to set boundaries, right? So maybe make that a goal. Maybe that can be your starting point, that this week is, I'm going to work on giving myself permission to set boundaries with people, right? To set boundaries, okay? Love it. Love it, okay? You got to start somewhere, okay? You got to start somewhere. And, definitely want y'all to remember that you can't fix everyone's problems, and especially as advocates and, folks that work within systems of care, that many of our jobs are not about fixing people, right? And many people don't feel like they need to be fixed, okay? So we're here to support, empower, right, those folks so that they can, help themselves, that they can find a place of healing, that they can find a place of maybe justice, okay? So I think this is hard, especially, I've, recently got some feedback during, COVID-19 is that, I feel like when we are able to meet with clients again face to face, that they may have, gone back a couple steps, and it's really hard to deal with that, to handle with that, and that's incredibly valid, right? And a big part of that is kind of understanding or realizing that we have done so much work and we have provided so much great support, right? And that it's not a reflection on us if someone does maybe backpedal a little bit, right? And backpedaling is part of it, right? I can meal prep and stay on track of my meal prep, day in and day out. But there are times when I get sick of, eating brown rice and, lean proteins, right? And I just want to go and pound some ice cream. And guess what, y'all? I definitely go and pound just a little bit of some ice cream, right? It doesn't happen often, but I do that. So, think about how, celebrating progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection. Perfection looks different with every person, and also perfection doesn't even exist, right? Like, what is perfection? Okay. And of course, set limits for work and leave work at work. Heck, this is hard, right? Because y'all who have reached out to me, y'all know if you text me any time of the day, I'm definitely going to text you back, right? And so that has been something that I have been setting boundaries, especially in the past couple of months, is okay, I'm at the gym. I need to not respond to this text right now. I cannot send all these different things right now. I need to just focus on what I'm doing now, right? So, this can be difficult, especially for folks who do crisis lines or are on call, things like that, right? So remember that setting limits doesn't mean adhering to some, predetermined schedule or, work or anything. It's, you can set your own limits. So if your limits are, okay, when I don't have the crisis phone, I'm going to go to a park, and after work and just kind of decompress. One of the things that I do is I drive up the canyon. So I live in Ogden. I drive up the canyon every single day, and I make sure that I take time to do that because that's something that I need. That's something that refuels me, right? So setting boundaries is not about keeping people away. Rather, it's a powerful act of self-care, right? It's deciding how you want people to be in your circle, right? Yeah, love it, love it. So, setting boundaries, communicate early, often, and clearly. So, I'm sure you know this, but not everyone has the same communication style. And it's okay to ask for clarification. It is okay if you don't understand something. Definitely ask questions, right? Y'all who have met me, you know that I have a very interesting communication style, right? I have a lot of close friends that we call them Andy translators, because they are able to, translate when I'm rambling or trying to describe something and it's just not making sense, that they're able to understand it and being able to translate it for me, right? And that's great, and think about the folks that you work with. Maybe someone needs more visual cues, right? Maybe someone needs to read it, okay? So how can you, um, you know, facilitate that communication? How can you increase that communication between y'all? And there's oftentimes easy ways to do it, like print something out, or like draw a map or draw something on paper, right? I know that's a tool that I use. If I don't understand something, if you just get a pen out and you draw it on, a piece of paper while you're explaining it, usually I'm like, okay, now I can, make sense of this, right? So if you keep your boundaries, those who are angry at you will have to learn self-control for the first time instead of other control. So think about folks who maybe lash out when you set boundaries, or folks who are uncomfortable with your boundaries, right? So, think about where they may be coming from. Is that they feel comfortable when they're controlling their surroundings or the people around them because maybe they feel uncomfortable, right? So think about how important it is for you to set your boundaries and adhere to your boundaries, because it's okay for you to also feel comfortable. It's okay for you to also feel safe, okay? So honor your boundaries and your experience. This number one thing right here, name your limits, know your limits. Okay, name your limits, know your limits. So this is something that, there's a couple, dates, anniversary dates throughout the year, having to do with my mom's passing. And normally I just work and work and work and just keep on, trucking and not take time off. If I put so much on my plate, then I don't have to worry about it, but I always crash. Every year, I always crash. So I now understand that this is a limit that I have, and that I need to plan and I need to take these times off, and even take a couple days before and after off, right? Because I know that this is a limit that I have, and I know that I won't be able to, perform well at work or be able to connect in ways that I, normally can. So be firm with your boundaries, right? There have been several years where, folks have reached out for trainings on these specific dates, and I've been like, oh, okay, well, they need a training and that's my job. And so now it's non-negotiable. So these are dates that I will not be available, right? So these are my boundaries now, and I'm like, nope, these are firm. I need this for me. I need to take the time off. And think about, especially in that example, is it selfish for me to take time off to grieve the passing of my mother? No, I would definitely say not. Thank you, therapy and Brene Brown, right? It's absolutely not selfish. I need to take this time, right? It is not only important to me to make that connection and have those memories, right? But also, I know that my little heart is going to be sad, and that I'm going to need some time, and I'm going to need some support. Okay. Oh, speaking of Brene Brown, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others. That hit me right in my core, right? Went right to my core, right? And I think even like the experience that I just shared, I think that's really important, right? Is, there has been worry that in the past I will disappoint folks, that, hey, this may be the only time you have an open staff meeting for the next couple months. And that sucks. I don't want to disappoint you. And it's also okay for me to take time and for me to take care of myself, right? Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. So someone chimed in on something. Let's see what they. Oh, so someone said, I have come to discover that it's selfish to not set boundaries and take care of myself because then I'm really able to be my best or give the best to those that I love. Love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So uphold boundaries consistently, right? So uphold those boundaries, heck, right? And so say if in that situation, folks come back and say, hey, we don't have any other time until, August or something. And, for me to say, oh, that sounds really frustrating. I'm really sorry that I'm unable to, come that day. How about let's set a time for, August, and if another date pops up and becomes available, we can probably do that too, right? So let's come up with options together and let's have those conversations, right? And feelings of uncomfort can be an indicator that a boundary is being crossed, right? Think about the times when you're maybe at a conference or working with folks or clients, and maybe they come a little bit too close to you, or maybe they say something that's, maybe that's a little not okay to say or ask or talk about, right? And you kind of get this feeling in your belly, or maybe that feeling of when your belly kind of sinks. You're like, oh, right? Maybe your belly just kind of feels a little bubbly. Trust those feelings. That can be a sign that says, hey, I'm not feeling too good about this. My belly's like, heck, we need to figure this out, right? Okay. Boundaries allow us to take better care of ourselves emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, right? So setting boundaries, right? Set and be consistent with expectations. What do you expect from your client or the survivors you work with? Do they know those expectations, right? How about what they should expect from you, right? Do they know what to expect from you? Do they know that if they email you that they will, get a reply in a couple days, within 48 hours? Or do they not know when your work hours are or how to get a hold of you? Like, how are we communicating this, right? How are we communicating our expectations? So this is really, really important. So, think about, there's a reason why in many of our policies that our personal cell phones are not given out, right? Because that is a boundary that, we have maybe set as an organization, so on and so forth, right? And also that is a personal boundary that you set with folks, is that when I'm at work, I am here to support you. I'm here to offer you resources. And when I'm at home, I'm there to take care of myself and my family. And that is okay. So my cell phone is all over the internet because, because of the job that I do, right? And so, yeah, I am very accessible. And that means that I need to set more personal boundaries with folks, right? And sometimes those phone calls are going to go to voicemail, right? And that's okay. Okay, so to set boundaries in relationships, it is vital to recognize your feelings, right? We have to differentiate ourselves from other people. Think about how many folks, especially us, empaths and empathetic folks out there, right? Is sometimes when we're sitting with someone or sometimes when we're interacting with folks, we have feelings and we don't know if they're ours, right? We're like, I don't know if this is what I'm feeling or if this is what the folks around me or my friend that I'm working with is feeling, right? Oh, guilt, heck, right? This gets us, especially as advocates, folks who work within systems of care, right? You need a support system. You need a support system, okay? So this is something that it even took me a hot minute to figure out. When I had a little bit of, I don't know if I want to say breakdown, but I had a hard time last year, right? I had some hard times. And, one of the things that I noticed is I was lacking a close support system, right? And so that has been something that I have actively worked towards, is to create a close, system of folks that I can reach out to, that we have a very trauma-informed friendship, that, mutually beneficial, that we respect each other, we care and we communicate. And it has been great, right? It has been great. And even, these new friendships that I'm developing, it's been really nice to, start that off with, these are my expectations. This is what I want out of a friendship. And if that's something that you can't provide, I am very okay with that. And that's valid, and you do you, right? But this is what I need. And so this is what I want in a friendship, right? So, it starts with small boundaries. So think about these little tasks that, I've been giving you throughout this, this week, work on giving yourself permission to set boundaries, right? What about saying no? So we're in Thursday. So then for the next 3 days, I guess 3.5, because we're still partway through Thursday, I want you to say no to someone. I want you to say no to someone. You can email me about it. Tell me the experience if you want. I'm deaf here for it. I want you to say no to someone. Okay. And hey, I can feel some of y'all heart rates just raise. I can feel it even from here. Okay. I just want you to try that. Just start small, right? And really, really big is to know the difference between feelings of uncomfort and feelings of guilt. Okay. Do I feel uncomfortable with this interaction, or am I feeling guilty, right? This picture down here, like, this is what guilt feels like. It weighs us down. We have to drag it across, our lives and our experiences, and it sucks. It sucks, right? A big part of this too is knowing your role, right? Which kind of sounds like knowing your limits, right? Knowing your limits, knowing your role. Okay. So what does your job entail? What does it mean? Okay? What doesn't it mean, right? So one of the things too, a boundary that I've set is, I am not a therapist, and I will not be anyone's therapist, right? I can offer, a lot of different services. I can refer, I can, gather resources and communicate with folks, but I am not a therapist. And that's something that I'm not willing to do or provide, right? And I'm not licensed, so heck, I don't want to do it, right? Okay, so setting boundaries is a way of caring for myself. It doesn't make me mean, selfish, or uncaring because I do things, because I don't do things your way. I care about me too. So here's some self-care techniques, right? Exercise. I am super obsessed with exercise right now. I can't be in the gym, and I have really been stepping out of the box of things that I'm comfortable with, and I'm figuring it out. I'm going on more hikes, right? And I've started to run. There's a park by my house, and I'm so introverted that going out to get the mail is something I have to work myself up to, right? But now I've been going for a walk every day, and I go for runs. I listen to music, I push myself, and it's so cool to see when I make progress. It's like, oh, I was able to run twice as long this time, right? It may only be for a couple minutes, but I'm making progress. I am hecka, proud of myself, right? Of course, reading. So I've been doing a lot of reading. I am currently working towards finishing 50 books this year, and I am at 26. So, oh yeah, right? So all forms of art, right? What do you do for art? Do you like to draw? You definitely know that I like to paint miniatures, and glue pieces of cardboard and foam together and make things, right? So let's see. Ooh, listening to music. I will say that I have been listening to Truth and Mattel nonstop. It's a problem at this point. Taking time off school or work, right? If you have to take a mental health day, take that mental health day, right? Take care of yourself, right? Honor yourself. Let's see. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is awesome. I remember learning about that in undergrad, and there were even times at my practicum that we would be doing mindfulness exercises, and I may or may not have low-key fallen asleep, right? Because it was just so relaxing. But don't tell anyone. That's a secret, right? Laugh. I love to laugh. Whenever my cats are throwing a fit or running around the house and meowing, it makes me laugh. As you noticed at the beginning of this, I tried not to, but I just can't help but laugh when they're making those noises, right? Ooh, what about drinking some tea? I love me some tea. I have my favorite tea that has been discontinued, and I have 1 box of it left, so 10 like tea bags of it left. And it's definitely, when I'm having a hard time, I'm like, yep, I'm gonna have some of this orange blossom tea. Cry if you need to. Cry, cry, cry. Love crying. I don't do it usually in front of people, but if I drive up the canyon and I'm listening to Enya, you def know that I'm having a little cry moment with myself, right? Love it, love it. Definitely don't know why that driving up the canyon and listening to Enya makes me cry, but it's good times, right? And of course, setting boundaries. Set boundaries, right? Set boundaries. Okay, one of the things that I love, here's an example, is play a game. So with your friends, family, coworkers, right? Play a game. If you've ever been to one of my 40-hour trainings, this is a game that we play at the end of the day on the first day. We play 2 truths and a lie. It is so fun because we have a group of folks that may not know each other, and then we kind of, have this controlled way of learning about each other and connecting. It's wonderful. So that's some more homework for you. Play 2 truths and a lie. Play it with your friends, your family. Yeah, you'll definitely learn some stuff about the people that you thought you knew, and also you'll have a good time, right? Okay, so here's a sweet cat break. This is Jorge's nose. He has the cutest nose in the history of the world. So, all right, compassion fatigue. Okay, so compassion fatigue. So this is a combination of symptoms from both secondary trauma and job burnout, right? So, I mean, most of us are empathetic folks. I mean, we work in mental health, we work in advocacy, we work in systems of care. We are people that care about other people, and we put a lot of ourselves into that work, right? So this happens with us, folks that work in our fields, right? So SAMHSA, which is a great resource. So here's, what they say that compassion fatigue stems from. So workload demands. Yep. All of you probably agree with that, right? Especially with the grants that we work on, right? Is that we have a lot of grant deliverables. So how can we, achieve these outcomes, these goals in the time allotted, right? And think about mental health professionals. How many clients do I need to see to be able to like low-key live, like pay my bills, etc., right? Feed myself and my family. Think about poor organizational practices, intense time pressures. Oh, this one's hard. Unsupportive relationships with supervisors and coworkers, right? Think about, sometimes we may work in trauma-informed organizations, but some of the people that we work with are not trauma-informed, and maybe they're not very validating or supportive, and that can really affect us, right? And especially right now is really big, is having that lack of control across work environments, right? Having lack of control can feel really overwhelming. Yeah. Someone said, hello, yes, workload demands, faux show, right? Okay, so signs of compassion fatigue, okay? So one that I experience is reduced feelings of sympathy or empathy. When I get an email and I'm like, oh, why do I have to reply to this? That is when I know, all right, yo, you definitely need to turn off this computer. It is now time for a mental health day. You need to sit in front of that TV, turn on some Xena, and glue together some cereal boxes, right? Think about feelings of irritability, anger, or anxiety, right? Where's that stemming from, right? Where's that stemming from? Headaches. I do not get headaches, right? I'm a person that doesn't get headaches. But when I start getting headaches, I know it's getting real and I need to take a step back, right? Problems in personal relationships. Maybe all of a sudden I'm being a little passive aggressive goose. We gotta stop that, right? That can be a sign that, hey, my needs are getting met. I'm, feeling a little fatigued, right? Poor work-life balance. That is, something that I have been working on for sure. I've been working on, right? And how many of y'all, right? What does your work-life balance look like? Okay, raise of hands or type yes into the question box. How many of you have seen this or done this, the professional quality of life measure? I will send this out in an email since the handout section is being silly goose. Oh, dang. Oh, it looks like maybe 5% of folks have heard of it. Okay, so this is a lovely tool that I'd love to share with y'all. So this is the professional quality of life scale. So it measures compassion satisfaction and compassion fatigue. So I will send that out to you. You could easily find it online for free as well. They do have a self scoring one, which is the one that I'll send you. Fill it out. I filled it out in December and I knew that my compassion fatigue was going to be low, but I was actually surprised that my compassion satisfaction was actually higher. So this is a really good tool to kind of give you a little view into kind of what is happening within your life right then, right? So preventing compassion fatigue, right? Set achievable goals for yourself. So this can, especially at work, this can look like, okay, so today I'm going to answer emails, right? Today I'm going to grade the quizzes for CEUs and send those out, right? So that's what I do, is I have a to-do list every day and I write on the to-do list the things that that are achievable goals, right? And especially this last week, sometimes I can literally only get to email in an 8-hour day, and because there's so much and it's so in-depth, right? So, don't be afraid to say no. Know your limits is really big, and make sure that you're practicing self-care. Okay, practice that self-care. Know your limit. So compassion satisfaction. So these are, SAMHSA again, not only competence, but confidence to do your work. Having support from supervisors and, a focus in your organization on staff wellness. So staff taking care of themselves, communication, check-ins, stuff like that, right? You feeling empowered to use your voice, like that is huge, right? Or you even feeling like you are being heard at work is huge, okay? So create a plan. So here's a self-care plan. And again, the handouts will be in silly goose. So you'll get an email copy of this. So I actually got this from Safe Harbor. So if you have any questions, reach out to Mariah at Safe Harbor. Yeah, really cool exercise. I did it in a training with her. It's really great. So really cool. But this basically is a self-care plan. You write down, things that you can do or things that you already do in these different realms of self-care, physical, spiritual, emotional, financial. You write down your 3 emergency coping strategies, right? Mine would be maybe a walk, and don't judge me, but I absolutely love to go on YouTube and watch the Spice Girls Olympic performance from 2012. It brings me so much joy. It just thinking about it, my skin's getting tingly. I'm like, yes, I love it. So that is something that's on my emergency coping strategies. I need to get on that Spice Girls. I need to get on that Spice Girls thing, right? Yeah, and then there's also a self-care contract on the back, so that's super, super cool, right? Another cat break with my sweet Jorge. I know there's a lot of pictures of Jorge, but I really just love him. Okay, let's talk about burnout. So are these feelings that I'm feeling, are they just burnout? Well, not exactly, not quite, right? So burnout can literally happen in any job, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you've been exposed to trauma, right? So this is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion caused by long-term involvement in emotionally demanding situations. Did I experience did I experience what's it called? Burnout at Blockbuster when I worked there? You best believe it, right? So was I experiencing trauma from folks complaining about late fees? No, but was I over it? Yes. Was I over it? Yes, right? Okay, so we're actually going to go over the 4 stages of burnout. So notice how these are, what's the word? It's not the right word that I'm thinking about, but getting worse as the stages go on. So think of stage 1, early warning signs. Okay, we're feeling fatigued, maybe starting to feel depressed. We're feeling bored, right? Maybe a little bit of anxiety that we can't really determine where it comes from, right? So then we have this initial burnout, right? So then we're starting to lose emotional control, maybe sleep disturbances, we're having headaches, our back hurts, our muscles are hurting, we don't have a lot of energy, but we're also like hyperactive. Maybe we're kind of startling easy, we're kind of, when people come, we're just having, a hard time, right? Maybe we are withdrawing, right? So then we have stage 3. Notice how the lists are getting longer. They're getting more intense. They're getting, more difficult to control or deal with. We have emotional outbursts. We have maybe these rashes, right? Like how many times have you maybe had a rash and you're like, heck, like, did I roll in poison oak today? Well, no. You're probably experiencing some burnout, right? Maybe our feelings of depression are increasing. They're stronger. Maybe we're starting to drink more, or maybe we're starting to use drugs more, right? Our blood pressure is higher. Maybe we're a little bit dizzy. Our headaches are getting worse. We're not eating, or we're eating more than we normally are. We're afraid of things. I know that when I was experiencing some burnout, in the last year, that irrational fears were really big. I was so afraid of interacting with people and things because I was just so nervous about, rejection or a couple other fears. My thinking was incredibly rigid. It was really difficult to kind of pull myself out of that, right? So now in stage 4, we're starting to see very physical, very severe symptoms and things happening, right? So, I mean, there are times that I would just be in my office and I'd be, doing my stuff, and I would just cry, and I would just cry through my emails or whatever, and it made no sense, but I was just crying, right? Think about feeling tense, or careless, or hostility towards some folks, right? It's really interesting because there's so many things here. There's so many symptoms, and some of them are like counter each other, right? You have a lot of tension, but then you're also really fatigued, and so very, very, very interesting, right? So really important to understand those stages, because when you can see or find out or know those stages, then you can, be aware and say, looks like I'm going into stage 3. I need to take some time. I need to come back to myself, right? Resilience, we love resilience. So resilience is great, and you can build resilience, and that includes making connections, especially right now, is staying connected to folks. When I played D&D yesterday, we spent the first hour just connecting and updating each other and finding out what's happening in each other's life. It was so nice to see those folks' faces again. It's like, oh, your beard is a little bit more gray than it was last time, right? And yeah, so that was really nice to be able to connect. So, accepting that change is part of life, right? Move towards your goals, whatever those goals are. Okay, so I talked a little bit about my reading goal. So since November, this is my nighttime routine, is I go to bed at 7 or 8, right? I get ready for bed, lay in bed, my cats are in there, we're having a good time. And I read until I get sleepy, right? So I read, and then I go to bed. And I wake up, I guess, quote unquote, naturally every morning around 6:30, right? And I feel rested. It works really well for me. I've noticed a lot of like a big decrease in my stress, kind of setting the standard, this ritual for me to calm down, relax. I do not have a TV in my room. It is a room simply for relaxation and sleep, right? I love this, looking for opportunities for self-discovery, right? So what are you doing to like discover things about yourself during this time, especially when we have a lot more time with ourselves and our families, right? Like, that I've been trying to paint on my big miniatures, right? And trying new things. And it's been a really positive experience. So what are you doing? Are you trying a new hobby? Are you reading? Are you getting out more? Are you having conversations with new folks? What are you doing, right? So guided meditation, if any of you have not done this, it is so cool. Love it. During a 40-hour training, we do this. A guided meditation, you can find a whole bunch online, a whole bunch on YouTube. It's great because you can turn them on. There's some that are 5 minutes, there's some that are 3 minutes, and there's some that are 45 minutes. You find some that work for you. And this is part of that finding out about yourself and finding out what you like is explore, find out what's out there, right? There's a couple apps too that folks use. And also, if you've heard of ASMR, yeah, from the outside, it looks weird, right? ASMR got me through undergrad, okay? When I was struggling with all these demands, working full time, I would go in that computer lab, and after I was done crying, I would turn on some ASMR and I would fall asleep in that chair, right? In the middle of the computer lab, we were safe. That was my life, okay? So, explore it. Maybe, like many people, it's comforting for you to, watch someone scratch some cardboard. You do you, I respect it, and I'm here for it. Oh, look, it's cat beans. So we got a little cat feet. It's super cute. That's just the cutest thing ever. So not my cats, but yeah. Okay, so secondary trauma. So secondary traumatic stress. Okay, so this is you having behaviors or emotions about a traumatizing event or something that, a trauma that someone else has experienced, right? So you are experiencing these PTSD type symptoms. You are, hyper aroused, you are avoiding things, you are experiencing those, and you did not experience that trauma. This happens a lot with therapists, mental health professionals, LCSWs, and advocates, right? So we're hearing some of the worst things that people have gone through, and that could affect us and affect us pretty severely. So secondary traumatic stress can happen literally immediately. You can be working with someone and then you can experience some of these symptoms, right? So here's some of the symptoms. This is from the Administration for Family or Children and Families. So cognitive symptoms, right? So lowered concentration, maybe you have rigid thinking, perfectionism. So perfectionism is definitely a big one that I see throughout the advocacy and mental health professionals, is that we become perfectionists, that it's almost like we're trying to prove to other people that we're doing okay, right? When in reality, it is okay for us to not be okay, and it is okay for us to say that we're not okay, right? Yeah. So emotional symptoms, guilt. Look at that guilt train coming back into the station, right? Anger, numbness, sadness, helplessness. I know that I felt helpless, right? Especially after working with survivors, working with victims, and it's hard. It's hard. There's, these folks that come to us and have experienced these horrific things, and it's really hard for us not to, connect with that in some way. Behavioral symptoms. So sleep disturbances, right? Appetite change, maybe you're withdrawing, maybe you're being startled easier. You know, maybe when someone knocks on your door, you jump because you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, right? Maybe you're so focused on trauma or so detached. Physical symptoms. What about your heart rate, right? Your heart rate beating you beating a little harder than it normally is. Are you having some chest pain? Are you having difficulty breathing? Maybe those anxiety symptoms. Impaired immune system. So are you getting sick more, right? So we know our emotions affect our immunity. We know this, right? Are some of the medical conditions that you have, are they getting worse, right? Are you having a hard time getting up, moving, right? What does it look like for you, right? So this is a activity. It's called My Universe. I got this one from YCC. I got it from Danette, the shelter manager there. So she is a really great resource. She has so many really great worksheets and resources for survivors, victims, and folks. Wonderful. But you will get this email to you. But basically, you're going to grab this worksheet. There's instructions on the back, and you are going to literally map your relationships, and you're going to visually map connections that you have to other people, if you want them stronger, if you want to set boundaries and stuff like that. This activity is very, very cool. I've done it before, and it was pretty eye-opening to see, like, oh, actually, I think I want this person closer, and I want this person farther away, right? Here's a picture of an elephant. Thought I would give y'all a little elephant or little change in cat pics, right? So let's talk about vicarious trauma. Okay, so vicarious trauma is similar to secondary trauma, secondary traumatic stress. However, this one occurs more over time, right? So this comes from working, with survivors, with victims of folks who've experienced trauma. And so these are, negative reactions to trauma exposure. And there's a range of symptoms, right? That's from Office of Victims of Crime. So, think, these cognitive shifts in the way that you think, that happen to folks that work directly with victims. Okay, so it changes maybe the way that we think, the way that we cope with stuff, the way that we see things, the way that we see situations, right? Are you at risk? I think I'm sure all of you can guess the answer is definitely yes, right? Yes, we are all at risk. Okay, so all of us who are working with victims, survivors, folks who've experienced trauma, right? We're all at risk. Okay, so the things that can increase our risk. So also think of when we talked about ACEs, right? So the Office of Victims of Crime say that things that can increase your risk, like prior traumatic experiences, right? Isolation, okay? So are you isolating yourself from others? Are you someone who generally isolates and maybe avoids reaching out to others, right? I had a friend the other day. We went hiking, social distancing hiking, don't worry. We, went hiking, and when we were yelling to each other, talking because we were so far away, she asked me, she says, why don't you reach out when you need help? Blew my mind. My hands are sweaty right now just talking about it. And I said, you're right. I'm really good at training other people in how to do this. I'm really good about advocating and supporting other people in this. And this is something that I struggle with. This is something that I struggle with. She real talked me. And I appreciate that, right? And it's nice that having someone that will call you out and be like, heck, let's talk about this, right? So are you isolating? Are you avoiding talking to other people, right? avoiding feelings, right? Do you have trouble expressing your feelings, your feels, right? Let's see, maybe you're in a new position, right? Maybe you're less experienced. Maybe you don't have a history in DV. Maybe you have a, history or work experience in, something else, interpersonal relationships, or maybe, mental health or something, and maybe not specifically trauma and DV, domestic violence. And you come to a new role, a new job, or you start seeing new clients, and that can be really difficult. That can be hard, right? We may feel that we're not prepared or not ready for that, right? Yeah, constant or intense exposure to trauma, right? With little or no variation in work tasks. This is a big one. This is a big one. So if we're all day, every day seeing survivors, seeing victims, seeing clients that are, have experienced trauma throughout their life, and that's all we're doing, that's all we're seeing, then that can be really, really difficult, and that can put us at risk for vicarious trauma, right? Okay, so the signs of this, notice that they're very similar to many of the other things that we've been talking about. So you're going to get a copy of this presentation. It is going to be really beneficial for you to be able to look back at this and see definitions of the different types, of what's the difference between compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma, so that maybe it can help you determine what you're feeling and what you're going through. So difficulty managing emotions. Yep, we've seen that before, right? Physical problems or complaints, aches, pains, right? Feeling emotionally numb, increased irritability, maybe explosive, right? Decrease in participation in activities that you used to enjoy, right? Maybe avoiding work interactions with clients or folks that you work with, right? So, think about how difficult it can be to determine what we're going through, what we're experiencing, right? And especially when we are folks that literally support and care for others, it can feel really difficult, and it can be really hard for us to determine what we are going through, right? So this is something that I've recently done within the past couple weeks. So there was a day a couple weeks ago that I was a little struggle goose, right? And so, I was noticing that I was struggling, and, I was trying to just get my work done, and, I just have a couple more things to do, but I knew I needed to detach. So I stopped. I, drove up the canyon. I, went to my favorite spot. I just sat there and I just, breathed. I watched the water. And then when I came back down, I decided to make self-compassion cards. So I will send you the Google Drive of this. There's a whole bunch of activities and self-care activities in there, including the ones that we've talked about. But this is basically what you do. You get index cards or sheets of paper or Post-it notes. I mean, whatever you have around, okay? A writing utensil, pencil, pen, marker, paint, I mean, whatever you have, right? So you get each card, right? And you write a self-compassion prompt. So I write in here that I do suggest that you write them out by hand, because then you are writing them, you are seeing them, and you're thinking about them. So it kind of gets you into that mindset to complete the activity, and also think of the possibilities of doing some of these things. So the stuff that you write on the cards, they can be physical activities, thinking or mental activities, emotional activities, writing activities, right? So here's a couple that I have done. So for example, on the card, it will say, what is something that you are especially proud of? So this could be a writing activity. This could be something you say out loud. This could be something you do with a partner, a friend, a family member. I did it I have a friend that we FaceTime every day for a couple hours. And it could be just as I'm, doing my work, I have her on FaceTime, she's doing her work, she's cleaning her house, and we're just talking to each other. We're just kind of trying to be with each other and hang out with each other as much as we can with social, distancing and not being able to be with each other in person, right? but we did this together, and we did one of these activities, and I pulled a card and we asked each other and we talked about it, and that was really cool, to be able to do that with another person. But most of these I do in conjunction with like journaling, right? I'm not much of a journaler, but it has been really cool to do this kind of journaling. You know, do a self-compassion card either every day or when you're feeling a little down or having been a little hard on yourself, right? We want to meet shame with empathy. That is another thing that Brene Brown says. But, you know, shame, we want to meet, you know, feelings of shame, especially shaming ourselves, with empathy, right? Build ourselves up. It's really cool. You can do it a number of different ways. It can even be a fun activity for a group of friends or close friends when you're, you know, maybe doing a social distancing hangout or something. Is that or over a video call that you can do some of these things. Here is what they look like. So I'm not known for my handwriting, okay, but this is the ones that I did originally. This is what they look like. So that's all they are. That's all they are. And then I mix them up randomly, and then I'll pick one, and then I will do the prompt. And yeah, it's really, really interesting. It was fun. Okay, so here are sweet boys. They had a little nap the other day, and Jorge just loves to just, I guess, lay off of furniture and kind of just live dangerously. All right, so guess what time it is, y'all? Okay, so this is, I know it's our favorite activity. It's one of our favorite games. So this week's edition of My Cat or Raccoon. So in that question box, I need you to type, do you think this is a cat? You know, one of my super sweet cats. Do you think this is a equally as super sweet raccoon? Okay, we got, someone said, it looks like a cat, but you're tricky. Oh, you know I'm tricky. Just wait. Just wait. Okay, so it looks like most people said cat. Most people, y'all are pretty confident about this. Y'all are pretty confident about this. You want me to give you time to change that answer? You want me to give you time? Huh? Some folks did change their answer. I love it. Okay. Oh, this is little Todico. So this is Sweet Boy Todico. This is when he was little. He's definitely much bigger. And this is before he broke those blinds. So yeah, that's my sweet boy. Y'all did so good. I'm so proud of y'all. Y'all, you're catching on. You're catching on, right? So I did want to, I'm gonna ask you here in a sec what you have been doing for self-care and self-compassion, but I did want to bring this up. This is another resource that I found. I was listening to a podcast last week and they brought this up. But so this is one of the most popular courses at Yale, and they now are offering it for free. But basically, it is a course on the science of well-being. It talks about not only happiness, but it gives you activities on increasing happiness and well-being and wellness in your life. So you'll get a copy of this presentation, but yeah, I have been going through it, and it's really wild to see that many of my friends have already been going through it, and it's been interesting so far. So here's a cool resource other than the ones that we've given you. Yeah, so I want you to type in that box right now. I want to know what y'all have been doing for self-care. What have you been doing for self-care? How have you been practicing self-compassion? What have you been doing? You tell me. Ooh, someone's practicing yoga at home. Nice. Making jewelry. Nice. All right, writing to your parents. Ooh, walks by the river. Yes. Ooh, oil painting. Ooh, you got to teach me how to do that. Ooh, karaoke. That's what's up. Someone is starting a club in their front room, exercising. Ooh, gardening. Ooh, I see a bunch of folks doing painting. Playing in the dirt. Playing in the dirt is really actually quite fun. I have been collecting materials to make terrariums, so hopefully the next coming weeks I'll have some tips for that. Mindfulness practices, yes. Breathing exercises. Today I got up earlier than my kids and just watched TV alone. Here for it. Love it, love it. Eating healthier, exercising every day. Yes, 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 yes. Ooh, a lot of people walks, just sitting and thinking sometimes. Think about how nice that is to literally just sit and not do anything, right? Oh, it feels great. Reading a bunch of Brene Brown books, knitting. I have been reading a bunch of Brene Brown and listening to podcasts. It's a lot. Learning more about emotional intelligence. Yeah, I think she has a study that's coming out about emotional intelligence. Ooh, getting into new Netflix shows. You want to hook us up with some of those shows, friends? Hiking with the dogs. Yeah, so here for it. Playing piano. I grew up playing piano. Walking, early morning walks alone. Yes, here for it. Oh, interviewing parents for their life stories. That's what, oh, that is very interesting. Spring cleaning. I mean, I need to do that, but we're not going to talk about that now. Sit in the sun at lunchtime. Warmth makes you feel better. Love it. Yeah. Not judging my less positive coping strategies like eating. Yes. Self-compassion, right? I do a daily mood app. There's a whole bunch of them out there. And I included, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I included an activity called self-compassion. And so I feel so happy when I get to click the little self-compassion button. I practiced self-compassion today. And the other day I included brave. So when I feel brave or when I do something brave, like I include that. And it's just, heck, it has just been so great. So yeah, I'm feeling good. That's fun. It's like, hey, you're doing good. And it's okay to let yourself know that you're doing good, right? Someone said less electronic time, screen time breaks. Love it. And depending on your phone, mine does a weekly like, I don't want to say printout, but I do want to say printout. Report. There you go. It gives you a report and tells you how much screen time you've used on what and whatever. And I was going like 10 hours of screen time a day, and now it's maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. So yeah, I love that. So it sounds like y'all are doing great things. It sounds like y'all are really, increasing the ways that you're taking care of yourself and really advocating for yourself. I love to hear that. I'm here for it, and I really appreciate you sharing that with me and with us on this webinar. So let's go through some of the resources before we depart ways. So again, I do want to remind you, for the folks that are new on this webinar, and even for the folks that have been here, right, is, even though we're in a time of quarantine and social isolating, right, we are seeing some places open up, but it may not necessarily be, right for everyone to interact with places yet, right? And people are still fearful. Really want you to know that our domestic violence service providers in Utah, they are open. They do have services. Some of the services may look a little bit different. There might be more telehealth, and there might be more, video calls and phone calls rather than in-person stuff. But they do still have most, if not all, of their services. So please, please, please reach out. And that includes emergency services. If you or someone clients are, in domestic violence, sexual violence, intimate partner violence situation and dynamic, make sure to remind them and let them know that it is still an option to call 911. It's still an option to call law enforcement, okay? Is that those folks are still around, and it's okay to call. So teen dating violence, okay? The next couple slides, love is respect. If you haven't been on there, this is me prompting you, yo. Get on to Love is Respect. Really great, super, super cool resources. And they're aesthetically pleasing. So they're simple, graphics, really like the way that they've designed it, makes it really accessible for youth. Futures Without Violence. They have been doing a lot of great webinars too, so I'm definitely going to shout them out. So if you are like, heck, I just love webinars, definitely get on board there because they have a lot of really great webinars as well. Break the cycle. So again, some teen dating violence, you know, working with youth, supporting youth, a lot of great resources, and maybe some programs and information that you didn't know about before. Okay. NNEDV, National Network to End Domestic Violence. At this point, I should just set NNEDV's website as my home page, right? Because I just go to it so much, so many resources. Check it out, especially for technology facilitated abuse. They have so many great resources. Technology is one of the biggest technical assistance questions and topics that I get. And many of the resources that I send you, that I link you with, are going to be at NNEDV and at their safety net center, right? So check it out, see what's on there, especially those toolkits, right? What can you do to increase your safety and security? What can you do to help survivors increase their safety and security? And we do have a technology use and abuse, some webinars coming up. Definitely register for those, okay? Check in your email. I have some registration links coming up. National Domestic Violence Hotline. Great resource. Usually the first, you know, place people go. They may hear about it or, you know, see it or know it, but they can link you with, you know, local resources. They can say, you know what, actually there is an organization that's, you know, relatively close to you. Would you like their phone number, their website to reach out? Really great information, and 24/7 availability, access to more than 200 different languages, right? That's definitely more languages than I speak. So folks can connect, and they have those languages and resources available. Strong Hearts, y'all know this is my jam. Y'all know that I love this organization. You know that I love this helpline and this website. Articles, their blog is really great. You know, they do a lot of really great work, a lot of really great awareness and education. Check them out, and, you know, pass it along to, you know, Native survivors, Native clients, folks that you're working with, right? You know, get this resource out for the folks that need it, okay? UCASA, our sibling coalition. So they're just like us, but they work with, they do the sexual assault side, right? And for some of y'all that are not from Utah, depending on your state, I think Idaho, they are a dual coalition. So depending on your state, you might have a dual coalition that is both sexual and domestic violence. Some states have separate coalitions. Some states are in the same, you know, office, but they're separate. So it just depends on what works for your state and those organizations, right? So check them out online, Google them, and find out what your state does offer. But they have a website, of course, and they have an app. So check out their app. You can download it on both Google Store, the Google Play, and an App Store for Apple. And then they do the 24-hour sexual violence crisis hotline for Utah. And then, of course, us, little domestic violence link line at Utah Domestic Violence Coalition. So we are available 24/7, and we have up to 150 different languages. Okay. It's really important to know that even though we are located, our offices are located in Salt Lake, that we are not a counseling service, so we cannot meet with folks in person, right? And just be aware of that we do have a lot of resources, but we are not a counseling service. Okay, so you can find us on the social medias. So we have our Facebook. You can find a lot of our events, webinars, trainings, etc. on there. Our Twitter, and then YouTube is where we post webinars that you can watch, have, you know, pretty easy access to. And then, of course, our website. Our website has a lot of information on it, a lot of resources, our contact information, and links and accessibility for webinars and trainings that may not necessarily be publicly available on YouTube. So, all right. This is me. This is my contact information. You can, this is my office number, and of course I'm not in my office. I will not be in my office until maybe August. We will start looking into seeing if we go back into our offices. So if you call that number, you can leave a voicemail and I will get it via email. And then you make sure that you let me know if I can call you back. And if you, when you leave your phone number, if you will just say it slowly and repeat it twice, that's really helpful. So I've called a lot of numbers that were not the person that I was supposed to be calling back. And that is, you know, a mistake that I definitely don't want to make. I don't want to have the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition show up on someone's caller ID when that person is experiencing that. So yeah, just know that sometimes it's hard for me to hear that. You can email me at any time, atremonti@udvc.org. I answer my emails. I check it multiple times a day throughout the day. Yeah, so thank you everyone for joining us today. This was fun. I hope you got a lot out of it. I hope you learned a lot. I'm so glad to hear all of you practicing self-care and, you know, increasing, you know, the ways that you take care of yourself and trying new things. I really appreciate you attending and connecting. If you have any questions, reach out to me. And as always, stay safe, practice self-care, and have a wonderful, wonderful week. I will see you next week and enjoy yourself. Bye.